Do you think it's natural to be faithful to one person for life?
In all my research, I think the person who came up with what I think is the most evolutionary argument that made the most sense was Helen Fisher. And she's an evolutionary biologist, I believe. And she said that she thinks it's natural to, and she studied marriage patterns, divorce patterns, and this changes based on the number of kids. But where she believes we're wired for 7 years for serial monogamy with clandestine adultery. That's what she says, meaning serial monogamy means one partner at a time, but secretly cheating sometimes on the side. That's how she thinks we're wired. And that the average is about 7 years. If you have more kids, that lasts longer, meaning that's enough time for the child to grow up and kind of take care of itself. And then you get to, have new children with someone else and vary your genes. That said, that's like the evolutionary perspective. That said, I don't believe like evolution is destiny. You know what I mean? It's probably evolutionary for people to want to usurp someone's power and money. And I don't know. I'm sure there are all kinds of evolutionary impulses that we have a prefrontal cortex that allows us to make these choices. I mean, if we had to do everything, I think you have a choice whether you want to be faithful or not. That said, fidelity is different than honesty, meaning that I think you can be honest with your partner. And for example, I know people whose partner, maybe the partner went through menopause and sex stopped, and they had a discussion and said, like, I still have these sexual needs. What do I do about it? And they renegotiated the relationship. So I think that we can rethink a relationship as an ongoing discussion between two partners, and probably the partner with the lowest comfort will generally win out. I talked to this woman, Stephanie Kuntz, who's like the biggest expert on marriage. She wrote a book on it. And she said the history of marriage was originally, it was, for property rights and inheritance, and kids were just extra workers, and then it was marriage for love was this radical idea. And she says, now we're in this thing where it's just, tick a box. Like I was at a dinner the other day and a bunch of people were there talking about their relationships. And someone's like, well, I'm going to have a kid, but I'm freezing my eggs. I want to have a kid later. And I'm going to do this. And someone else is like, I want to get married and fall in love and have kids. And it's like a tick a box thing. Do you want one partner or many? Do you want a lot of people are into, ethical non-monogamy now. Do you want kids? Do you not want kids? You can just check a box and decide. And we're in this way where we have so much choice.
Ethical non-monogamy?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing now.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Some people call it consensual non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy, but that's basically you're not monogamous with your relationship partner, but you're ethical, meaning you're both honest about it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You, as you said earlier, you went on a journey to figure out whether that stuff could work for you, like polyamorous relationships, swinging, all of those kinds of things, and you concluded that it couldn't work for you. I think I remember you saying that you kind of wanted like a half-open relationship at the time.
I think most people probably do. I think that's probably coming out of that was me coming out of a wounded place saying that. By half-open, you mean like I get to do what I want and they don't or something? Yeah. I think that usually whoever says that, and including myself at the time, is probably like a wounded person, like in terms of like, I just want to do what I want, but I want to deal with you deal with those uncomfortable emotions, but you can't do what you want because I can't deal with uncomfortable emotions. So I think that the answer is, I think there's like three entities. There's you, there's your partner, and there's a relationship. And I think the right answer is something that makes all three better. So for example, when I was in those scenes, there were a lot of couples, and it wasn't, sometimes it was the woman leading the charge, sometimes it was the guy leading the charge, where one partner was letting the other partner be more open so they didn't lose them. And they were just silently suffering. That's not good for the person or the relationship. But I think if you can find a way where, like, for example, one person I met, he thinks his partner's fabulous, and other men he shouldn't just get to hog all that fabulousness to himself. Like, he wants to share that. Other people can get to experience that. And so that's right for him and right for her and right for their relationship.
And you've met people that are in that sort of polyamorous situation that are like really, really, really happy.
Yeah, and here's what's interesting. I found that just as many people cheated in polyamorous relationships as monogamous relationships. And I'll give you an example. Like one of the first people I met, like maybe they have a boundary, like, oh, you're not allowed to do this specific sexual thing with other people. You're not allowed to do this. Like they would still break. They can literally do like 95% of what they want and 5% is restricted. and they'll cross that boundary. I found just as much cheating in that as monogamous. And the idea really being, if you're healthy, whatever relationship you choose will be healthy. If you're unhealthy, whatever relationship style you choose will be unhealthy.
And maybe there was something in just breaking the boundary that people find somewhat appealing. So it doesn't really matter what the boundary is, but there being one, you're going back to that avoidant nature of trying to stop yourself from being a bird trapped in a cage. Maybe just breaking a boundary is part of the thrill.
Yeah, there's someone I met, probably the wisest person I met, I forget his full name, his name was Pepper, and he had two big thoughts, and one was that intentions are better than rules. And then his second thought was your partner has to have an abundance of you before they can sort of be with other people.
So explain both of those then.
Sure. The intention is like, well, what are our intentions? To honor each other, to be honest, to respect, and to have sort of intentions, which are discussion points, versus, well, you can do that, but you can't do this. And behind it, those rules is an intention. For example, what's behind the discomfort of someone sleeping with someone else is the intention is safety. I feel unsafe if you're off with someone else because I could lose you. And so the intention is safety, and maybe there are other ways to get that need met. Mm-hmm. You know, as a short guy who's like literally like 5'6", and and people are always looking for someone who's like 6 feet or over, a guy, and you're like, oh man, I'm like 6 inches below the mark. I realized, oh no, what they want is like safety there, or security, being with someone who feels bigger or stronger, helps them feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I can do safe. I can't do tall, but I can do safe.
Interesting.
So that's the idea of intentions. Then the idea of a partner has abundance of you means a lot of people are like, this relationship isn't working. We're fighting a lot. Like, maybe we should split up. Maybe let's try polyamory. That's not going to work versus, or it's just if your partner has enough sex, has enough love, has enough connection, and then you're with someone else, there's less of that fear because they're full. Your partner should be full first. Third thing, for people who are considering doing this, in case they're I'm sure some people are like thinking maybe this will work for me, and I think it's called the burning period, which is that if you do open up a relationship, there's a period of 6 months or whatever that there's a lot of discomfort and awkwardness, and it requires a lot of communication to work through it.
A lot of insecurity, I imagine.
Yeah. Our biggest fear as a child is abandonment, because what happens if our parents out there, we don't get milk or water or food, and we die. We can't take care of ourselves. And so we're fear of abandonment. A great line from The Truth. I think about this all the time when people are scared in a relationship about being abandoned. This therapist named Lorraine said, unless you're a child or a dependent elder, no one can abandon you except yourself. And you're not going to die if the person you love leaves you. It's just going to hurt and suck. Right?
That's how it feels, right? On a psychological level, it feels like we are being, because that emotional reaction stems, I guess, right back to like, I don't know, being thrown off the island by our tribe or something. And when we think about the physiological consequence of loneliness as well, like the body completely changes. We go into self-preservation. We don't sleep as well, and that's just when we're lonely. So.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I think there's two sides. There's the abandonment, like if a child's abandoned, maybe that child doesn't survive. And that's obviously happened to us, to children historically. And then the other side, like you said, if you're kicked out of the tribe, and this is why people are so fearful on social media and all these things, if you're kicked out of the tribe, well, you can't survive on your own out in the wild.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.